Each place has its evolved identity that is defined through its socio-cultural, geographical, and architectural factor. Here, Mylaudy is a settlement having its social production through occupational culture, that is stone craft work. It has been known for its Tapati community settled centuries ago, still creating marvels in stone. Hi, myself Aswin Kumar, roll number 1011601 presenting my 10th semester thesis work for the year 2020. Topic of my thesis is Mylaudy Stonecraft and Resource Center at the district of Kanyakumari in the state of Tamil Nadu. Before moving on to the sheet, let me just overview the thesis content. The whole thesis is divided into three parts: study part, sheet number 1 to 8, conception part, sheet number 9 to 14, and design part, sheet number 15 to 23. Moving on to the sheets. Aim of my thesis is to design a facility to understand and experience and learning Dravidian temple stone craft and sculpting at Mylaudy and thereby reviving its cultural identity. So this is the thesis methodology. Thesis methodology is already briefly described in the content. So moving on to the introduction part. Introduction to Mylaudy. Earlier in times, temples were the major public buildings and landmark of a town. Map 1 shows the Dravidian temple towns. Each precinct has major and subsidiary temples, and each of these temples were massive structures require thousands of workforce to erect it. Stone was an important feature. If we look closer, we get to see villages practicing certain craft. Map 2 shows major stonecraft villages of Tamil Nadu. In this, we all would be familiar with Mahabalipuram or Mamallapuram as a major tourist destination. Mylaudy, on comparing to other stonecraft villages, masters the craft of Krishnashila. Map 3 showing the location of Mylaudy within the district of Kanyakumari. So this is the National Highway 47. Mylaudy lies between Nagarkoil and Kanyakumari. Retrospect, Mylaudy through ages. So this is a timeline of Mylaudy across centuries plotted against its occupational structure at a particular time. So Mylaudy as a settlement emerged in between 17th to 18th century. It was for the construction of Srichindran temple artisans were brought here because of the favorable condition and availability of raw material in Mylaudy Para made them to stay here. So in between 18th to 20th century, Mylaudy being a part of Travancore kingdom became a one-stop center for temple construction. By mid-20th century, administrative division happened and Mylaudy became part of Tamil Nadu. And by 1958, Mylaudy stoneworkers cottage industry was introduced. So the major aim was to provide work opportunities for people as temple construction were reducing. Over all these centuries, Mylaudy Para remained as the major source of raw material. Granite quarrying continued over long time. By 2011, quarrying was banned and affecting the occupation adversely and created an abandoned quarry in the village. These are the legends for the occupational structure. So Mylaudy settlement, the socio-spatial organization of Mylaudy. This is a section cutting through National Highway 47. As we can see, Srichindran temple lies in one side of National Highway and Mylaudy on the other side. This is the map of Mylaudy village with its boundary. This is the by road connecting the National Highway, and this dotted area is Mylaudy Para region. And if we cut a section through the village without considering the Mylaudy Para region, the section would be something like this. There are mainly three types of street: traditional street, mixed street, and workshop street. So traditional street, as the name says, is exclusively working in temple stone craft work. Mixed street have both kinds of buildings, and workshop street is exclusively for small and large scale stone workshops. So If we see a traditional street layout in plan, it would be looking something like this, and this is how a workshop's a section looks like. So moving on to the housing typology, there are mainly two types of houses, traditional and modern. None of the houses above G+2 floors. One of the major and important feature of Mylaudy are the workshop spaces. So this is how a traditional workshop plan, section and elevation is like. So the major features of traditional workshop include temporary or semi-built structure, stone or wooden pillar, thatched or tiled roofing. Generally no flooring is done. Height is between 4 meter to 12 meter based on work. God taking birth, process of sculpting. So the raw material for sculpting is Krishnashila, as in the local language, it is the black granite. So there are majorly 9 steps involved in sculpting. They are selection and transportation, storage, commissioning, shaping of stone, marking and designing, rough carving and smooth and detailed carving, polishing, and eye opening. So after eye opening, an overview of present day. So present day Mylaudy is it's a town in Agasthiswaram Taluk with a population of 10,070 people. One of the major potential is the tourism. So as we can see in this tourism network map, this is a national highway connecting Trivandrum to Kanyakumari, and these are all the major tourist destinations within it. As we can see, Mylaudy lies very proximal to the national highway. Proximity of Mylaudy from major tourist destinations in Kanyakumari creates a scope for increasing the footfall of visitors in Mylaudy if necessary facilities are provided. There is a small existing proposal by cooperative society with involvement of Kanyakumari district government for expanding the existing cooperative society along with incorporating community facility and a new sculpture museum. Taking this proposal in consideration and inferring the community, a hypothetical project is framed as my thesis. The project will be a community-oriented visitor center creating a platform for sharing the local skill and knowledge, thus enhancing the scope of tourism. So this is the community analysis or the inferred data from the community study. So this is strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. From the community study, it is clear that the most feasible area for intervention is Mylaudy. Was the reason for settlement, a resource center, presently an abandoned quarry. Approach setting. For a community-oriented project, understanding the place and people is important. So creating experience rather than airdropping a visitor directly onto the built facility is necessary. Hence, the site has been delineated as macro and micro level site. The whole Mylaudy region is taken as macro site for intervention, and an approximate area of 5.8 acre is defined as micro site or proposed site for built facility. So this is the Mylaudy region. Location and context. Talking about the Mylaudy region, this is a by road connecting Mylaudy. This is Virsadi Road. It's a water body, Pallikondankulam. These are the first settlements, traditional settlements happened. And there are two abandoned quarries, one large and one small quarry. Smaller one started recently, and this is the microsite, the delineated area for building. So if you cut a section, it would look something like this. It took centuries to break Mylaudy to Mylaudy quarry. Earlier 17th to 18th century, it was a hill, something like this. Over the time, due to quarrying, it became something like this. And if this quarrying was continued, it would have resulted in a deeper and wider trench. Post-quarry impact. Palligonikulam and surrounding is a wetland which was affected by quarrying of Mylaudy para. The migratory birds which used to visit these areas vanished. Since quarrying was banned in 2011, these birds started reappearing during their seasonal visit. So there is a scope for doing an ecological approach that can catalyze the recovery. Apart from this, groundwater contamination is another post-quarry impact. Regarding rules and regulation, as Mylaudy quarrying was one of the oldest, it never followed any rules. If we see the salient features, safe distance, and actual condition, we can understand why Mylaudy quarrying was banned. The microsite. So this area is the microsite lying between the both quarries, shallow and deep quarries. So the deep quarry is termed as zone 1, the site as zone 2, and the shallow quarry is zone 3. As we can see, the Palligondan and Virsadi Road, and this microsite lies within the macrosite Mylaudy para. This is how the section looks. So this is a site analysis or the grid analysis done for the microsite based on the different factors like slope, axis, etc. By inferring the grid analysis and the data is collected on macro and microsite, the SWOT has been prepared. So this is the strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So moving on to the case studies. For framing the design brief of Mylaudy Stonecraft and Resource Center, case studies are done. I have done 4 case studies, 3 live and 1 literature, intended to understand the planning strategy, spatial standard, occupancy, user interference, and required spatial components. The inference from case studies is used to derive area program formulation for the design proposal. So as in the left, we can see the parameters. So I have done case study on Khamir Craft and Resource Center, Uttarayan Arts Village, Living and Learning Design Center, and literature case study as Friendship Center, Bangladesh. So all of these buildings have a peculiarity, as these buildings are buildings or facilities are done for a particular community. So this is the detailed spatial component analysis. From inferring this and from standard, area programming is derived. Strategic framework. For the holistic development of community, considering its present, past, and future, strategic framework has been derived with respect to studies on community, which includes visions and goals to be achieved and strategies for achieving the goals. So these are the strategic frameworks. So it has 3 parts: the design goals and vision, design strategies, and for the same, what design components can be brought in. So the first goal is to enhance the tourist potential, then reviving the cultural identity of Mylaudy, empowering and improving the socio-economic status of community, to develop a collaborative learning platform through interaction, and to restore Mylaudy para. Talking about the user groups, so the major user group include Mylaudy community, visitors, students, and researchers. Reframing Mylaudy para. So reframing Mylaudy para is a macro site intervention that would enhance visitors' idea or understanding of Mylaudy and the community before getting into the built facility. So it includes provision of transition zone within the micro site, defining pedestrian path through traditional settlement, defining vehicular path towards the built facility, edge landscaping for deep quarry, ecological succession for shallow quarry. So the color coding defines these macro level interventions. So this is how the narrow road is converted to pedestrian path. That's how the idea is. Now this is how existing quarry edge is going to be altered. As per the site analysis and understanding of the community, the proposed site for building lies between deep and shallow quarry. There is a potential risk of danger that should be taken care of. Hence, the special topic of the project is strategies for ecological restoration of quarry. So, from the section, it is clear that the proposed site is lying between shallow and deep quarry. So, the first step is to make the site suitable for building function without risk. So for the same, I have done a live case study on timber basalt quarry. So the idea is to convert the existing quarry to something like this, uh, the dangerous quarry edge into a more safe ecological boundary. So the process involved restoring the quarry ecology of quarry and general method for hazard reduction. So restoring ecology include edge treatment and ecological succession for deep and shallow quarry respectively, and general method, safety rules, and building design consideration. Moving on to the implementation. This is the process of ecological succession. Ecological succession is done in the shallow quarry. So local plant species are introduced to the land, and over the time it grows and becomes trees and reaches its climax stage, and that can be used by the cattle to as the fodders. So major building design consideration includes maintaining a safe distance from dangerous edge, building setback minimum of 10 meter, reducing direct exit or opening towards quarry from the building, and building planning with visual access and no direct access. So edge landscaping for zone 1, it's basically zone 1 has a very large periphery. So different kinds of edge landscaping can be done. Some of them are shown. One of the type is shown in the reframing Mylaudy para or the macro site intervention itself. So these are other types. Moving on to the project, the build facility, Mylaudy Stonecraft and Resource Center, starting with the design development. The concept is to create a tangible spatial experience for the aspects that the Mylaudy has. The aspects include craftsmanship and knowledge of the community, the story of transition of stone to God. The design is based on the perspective of a person visiting for the first time. How should the experience of understanding of that place to be provided for that person? For the same, principle of serial vision is used to create visual loop of experience. Quarries on both sides plays a major role as a view framer. So concept development. There are two aspects of Mylaudy that has to be converted into spatial experience for visitors. So the first, the craftsmanship and knowledge can be communicated or shared through functional spaces of learning and unlearning. Clustering these spaces with other functional requirements for the users can create the required spatial experience. The other aspect of transition of stone to God can be conveyed through nodal points or visual nodes. So each node represents each stage of stone's transition to God through hands of a sculptor. Thus, combining the spatial clustering and visual nodes together creates a complete experience for a person visiting Mylaudy. Apart from this, design should be in such a way that placement of building should be with respect to site condition. Building should be a topographic continuum merging in the context. So this section represents the sequencing of spatial experience from node to node. So the red lines red arrows represent axis, visual axis, and blue represent axis. And the sketches represents the serial vision of experience across the created facility. As a person visiting Mylaudy would first view the topographic continuum, then through the pavilion of transition, having an axial glance of supreme, experiences the raw, experiences the rough, experiences the smooth, and at last reaches the supreme and gets the story of stone. Process diagram. Step 1. Positioning the supreme, node 5 at the highest contour with respect to the visual axis and at the maximum distance from the transition zone so that it becomes the tail end of the visual loop, and other nodes can define in between. Step 2, defining a site grid of 3.75 by 3.75 meter with respect to the positioning of Supreme. Step 3, zoning, overlaying the spatial clusterings. Step 4, blocking, outlining the spatial cluster with respect to the site grid, area requirement, also defining entry node within the block. And defining raw, rough, and smooth within the first floor level with respect to the visual axis and axis. All the black dotted lines shows the visual axis. So this is how the nodes are arranged. Entry and Supreme node at the ground floor and other nodes on the first floor. So building massing. Building as a single block is introduced onto the site. With respect to the spatial clustering and area requirement, blocks are defined. Transition pavilion at the transition zone, node 1 and 5 are defined. Also, the spatial clusters are shaped with intermediate open spaces. Provision of node 3, 4, 2, 3 and 4 on the first floor level, and this is how the final blocking and massing has been shaped out in the site. Design brief. To the right is the tabulated area programming for the project with a total built-up area of 8,644.1 square meter. To the left is a spatial hierarchy or proximity chart starting from the transition zone and accommodation facility at the end. The pavilion, forecourt, and live museum as whole acts as transition spaces, and nodes defined along with the spatial clustering together creates a holistic experience. So this is the three-dimensional view of Mylaudy Stonecraft and Resource Center. So as we can see, a person visiting Mylaudy Stonecraft and Resource Center starts from the transition zone. Parking is at a level of minus 0.6 meter level. Through the pavilion of transition, which is at a plus 0.6 meter level, he reaches the entry node and can direct himself towards visitors facility and towards the convention facility. For commissioning purpose, can visit the cooperative society. Either the person can take steps reaching the upper floor and can experience node 2, 3 and 4 and come down, or can get down to the forecourt at minus 0.6 meter level and can access the cafe. At plus 0.45 meter level, the person can learn and unlearn the craft of Mylaudy through different spaces. So these all are the different set of spaces which combines to form the craft and resource facility. And at the end is the accommodation facility at a level of plus 1.5 meter. So this is Mylaudy Stonecraft and Resource Center as a whole. So this is explored an axonometric view of Mylaudy Stonecraft and Resource Center. As we can see, the altered site condition, building base with different levels, ground floor with walls and columns, and first floor level. And this yellow dotted lines represents the circulation of a person connecting nodes, so that the story of transition of stone to God is understand. Moving on to the drawings. This is site layout at ground floor level. The blue dotted lines shows the framed views as per the concept, and these So through the transition zone, these facilities together forms the visitors cluster, and this is the convention facility, and this is a cooperative society, and coming down, this is the forecourt, and this is a cafe cluster. Moving up at plus 0.45 level, within different levels, different facilities are provided, which together combines to form the stone craft and resource facility, and at end is the accommodation facility in plan. So this is the first floor level plan site layout. So moving through the stairs, we get in first, second, third, and fourth node, and this is the terrace plan. These are the sections: section A, section B, section C, and section D. So these are the part plans, or this is the transition pavilion part, and the scale 1:100. So as we can see it in the 3D. So it basically includes the transition zone. So there are mainly 3 entries: service entry, main entry, and vehicular entry. Vehicular entry leads to the parking, service entry for the services, and there are mainly 2 security cabins, one near to the service entry, one at the vehicular entry, and there are toilet units, including a special toilet. There is OAT. There are small outlets for temporary. Then this is how it leads to the main facility. So this is the next part, starting with the building. It includes clusters like visitors facility, cooperative society, cafe, convention facility, and a part of craft and resource center. So starting with the Gopuram, the entry definer, it looks something like this, a replicated temple Gopuram. The first thing that we see is the information desk. Then there is conference room, lift core, clock room, then common exhibition lobby, common toilet set with special toilet, and staircases leading to the first floor. And this is the waiting lounge and office spaces for the cooperative society. From cooperative society and from the visitors facility, we can get down to the forecourt, and this area is cafe, and this is a service road connecting the cafe where loading and unloading can happen, and through the service road, stones are brought towards the resource facility, craft and resource facility. And this is the auditorium with its makeup room and change room, so which combines to form the convention facility. And these are workshop spaces, and it's open display spaces. So moving on to the part 2, which includes the rest of the craft and resource facility and accommodation. So rest of the craft and resource facility include the exhibit area, which surrounds the node 5, and there are workshops, manual workshop and machine workshop for stonecraft within that, and there is an OAT. Apart from that, there are repository room, which is a library and conference. Then there are classroom and toilet unit. Then this is the accommodation plan. Thank you.